Hey, welcome everybody. If you're just joining in, this is the Flipaclip animation workshop, and I posted some links in the chat. If anybody would like to follow along today and do these animation activities, the program we're going to be using is for mobile devices and tablets. So they don't have a version for the PC just yet, but there's some pretty cool alternative programs out there for PC, and the stuff you're going to be learning today can apply to any animation platform, but we're using Flipaclip because it's very accessible and it's a free program. Your Clubhouse members can download it on their phone. So if you get a chance, I posted some links over here. If you have an Apple device, you can use the App Store. If you have a Android device, you can use Google Play. A lot of my kids come in with Kindles, Amazon Kindles, and you can download it on the Amazon store. So I got links there for you guys if you'd like to join along. I'll just give folks, it looks like some folks are still joining, so I'll do my intro here in a minute. But I just want to say welcome, and it's good to see all you guys. I wish we could all hang out and make cartoons together in person, but this is kind of cool too that we're able to do this with Zoom. So I appreciate you guys coming out for this one. Couple folks still joining. All right, I'll go ahead and get started on the intro. And if folks join in, like Jake said, this is being recorded, so they'll have the opportunity to check it out later. But just welcome to the Flipaclip Animation Workshop. I'm Galen, I'm a Clubhouse coordinator in Edgewater, Colorado, and I'm also an artist and animator, so I'm super excited to show you guys Flipaclip animation. It's just a really wonderful program. Today we're going to take a look at some Clubhouse projects that kids have used Flipaclip to create. We're going to also check out some animation principles that are used at Disney Studios. We're going to check out a couple techniques that are used in the Japanese anime industry. And I'm also going to go on like a crazy rant for a little while. You guys can tune me out if you want, but I'm a huge fan of cartoons. So I'm going to go on a rant about what I call the exciting boom. There's like an exciting animation boom happening right now on a bunch of streaming services and YouTube and everything. So it's a lot of opportunity to foster creativity with our Clubhouse kids, and there's a lot of excitement about animation. So we'll get into some of those examples. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so you guys can check out some slides that I got prepared. So let me share here. So go into presentation mode. So what is Flipaclip? So this program was created in 2012 by three brothers, Marcos, Jonathan, and Tim Mason, for their LLC, which is Visual Blasters. And when you're downloading it, you can make sure that you're getting the one from that particular company, because there's some similar apps with similar names, but the one you're looking for is Flipaclip from Visual Blasters. And one of the things that my Clubhouse kids love about this program is that it's super easy to upload. Like it's, you can just post things to YouTube directly, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. It's very user-friendly to be able to upload. So kids are really excited about that. And Flipaclip's supporting a large growing community of creators, and periodically they do cool things like host contests and showcases and challenges. Another thing that we love about Flipaclip at our Clubhouse is it's super user-friendly. You know, a lot of people describe it as a digital flipbook because it's so simple and intuitive, but at the same time, it's really powerful. Like it has a huge variety of features. You can capture your own audio, you can import live footage, you can create animated GIFs. A lot of our Clubhouse kids use it to snap photos and make animations, you know, using Lego. Flipaclip's super accessible. It's for iOS and Android devices. It's free. The pay version, which has some additional features, is only $10, and it's got a good rating. You know, it's 4.6 out of 5 with millions of active users today. So if you got any of these devices, you know, you can download it. I would say a good additional tool to get if you're wanting to do this in your Clubhouse is try to get a stylus. You know, in the case of an Apple product, try to get an Apple Pencil, because the program involves drawing, and so those just make it a lot easier. However, a lot of Flipaclip people in the Flipaclip community pride themselves at their ability to draw with their finger. So you can still use your finger and you can still get really good results. But you know, that's one of those things. We kind of already went over this, but you guys can download it for all these devices, the Kindle Fire. You can go to the Amazon store, the iPad or iPhone. You can go to the Apple App Store, Android phone, Google Play. And if you guys have any questions about downloading or installing, you can just raise your hand and I can answer those questions for you guys. And I'll just give you like a real quick kind of tour of the app with this video just to show you kind of where some of the things are. But yeah, it's a really awesome program and we get a lot of use out of it in the Clubhouse. It's real easy. So you have a home screen where all your projects are there. Everything auto saves. So you're always going to find it there. You just hit the plus button to make a new project, name your project. It has pre-loaded backgrounds. So you can drop a background in, or you can actually use the paint bucket and just do a solid color. It allows you to change the frame rate. And here's a little good side note for you guys. Most TV animation that you see is 12 frames a second. So that's kind of the default when you open up the program. The toolbar is really simple. So it basically just has pen, pencil, brush, and marker. There's a slider that you can use to adjust the size of it. You can adjust the opacity of it with that little rectangle, or if you tap it, you can actually go to the color picker. What I like about the color picker is you can actually save your own palette, which is kind of nice if you have certain characters that use the same palette over and over. There's the pencil tool, and I won't really show most of this video, but that kind of gives you just a quick idea. Navigating is super easy. So see how they zoomed in? So you use 2 fingers, you can zoom in on your thing. That's super helpful if you're animating by drawing with your finger. And zooming out is 2 fingers pinching the screen. You can rotate the canvas using 2 fingers. You can pan on your canvas. So navigating it those ways is super helpful. Let's go to the next slide here. So here's some of our Clubhouse kids working on their animations during quarantine. Our guy Fernando here, he's super into making like stick figure animations with ninjas and stuff like that. And I'll show you guys some of that. Eli here, she's actually working on a dragon, which I'll show you guys. And Fernando, he likes to, or Aldo, he likes to do like experimental animations. He just likes to scribble different colors and kind of watch what happens. So it gets a lot of use and it's a great way to get your kids interested in animation because it's very, welcoming and intuitive. This is kind of cool. I wanted to share this with you guys. So this was a project that we did with the high school in our area. So this was a Catalyst project with Jefferson High School. And this project, we actually had 21 or 22 different animators working on it. So each kid in the class did their own drawing. And in animation terms, the drawing that you create is a key drawing. They call it a keyframe. And then what you do in between your keyframes is called an in-between. So for this exercise, each kid did their own key drawing, and they also made a duplicate of their key drawing that they gave to a partner. And the partner took their own drawing, they took their partner's drawing, and then they were tasked to try to create an in-between drawing. And that's why you see one kid's artwork morph into another kid's artwork. So it was basically one animation loop where we all kind of worked in one room in one circle, and we had 21 different animators working on it together. And it was super fun. It was great to be tasked with trying to figure out how to make your drawing morph into somebody else's. And it was also just a lot of fun to at the end of it, we did a premiere, turned the lights off, popped some popcorn, and watched the final movie. And it was just a blast. We had a great time with this one. Let's go to the next one here. Okay, so this is some projects that are made in Flipaclip with our Clubhouse kids. And there's a few different techniques going on here that I want to share with you. So in the upper left, we see a dragon in silhouette. And Eli, she created that animation for her school play. Because of COVID, her school play was actually remote. So it was more of a video project. and they did Alice in Wonderland, and she was to create the Jabberwocky. So for the scene with the Jabberwocky, they used her little animation sequence when it came on screen. And she did pose to pose animation. So she did one drawing of the dragon with its wings up and one drawing of the dragon with its wings a little bit lower. And then she created the in-between drawings. And it seems like it would be harder to do it that way, but it's actually a little bit easier because you can kind of trace the big changes. This one in the upper right corner that you see is a project that Aubrey made, and she's super into Japanese animation. I don't know if your Clubhouse kids are into Japanese animation, but we noticed and studied techniques in Japanese animation where they use a lot of layering of frames. So for her, you know, wanting to create like a Japanese anime that has that kind of complex artwork, she created one layer that had her character and another layer where she animated just the flames and the shoulders and the eyes. And so that's another cool thing about Flipaclip is you can really maximize different layers. And like what she found was she was able to do that kind of more detailed animation like she likes to see with anime. The one in the bottom right is kind of cool because Fernando did this one. It was one of his first animations, but he's doing a technique here called motion blur. So, you know, there's very few frames of the guy traveling across the screen, maybe like 8 frames, but he did this scratchy motion blur to give it that effect of the character moving fast. He was really happy with that, and it was a lot of fun. And the one with the clouds is one that I did, but it was just kind of an experiment with using layers to do different color techniques. So I'll show you guys some of those techniques in the exercise. But before we get started with today's exercise, I just wanted to hear from the room. Do you guys have Clubhouse members that like to draw or animate? I'd love to hear about that. You know, I always want to hear what kinds of stuff Clubhouse kids are doing in other places.
Well, we haven't had anyone coming in for the Clubhouse since the pandemic hit. So, but I have a virtual program, and all my kids are into animation one way or another.
That's awesome.
Will definitely come in handy because many of them don't really have very high quality computers either. So this will come in handy being able to do it on a mobile device. They all have phones, it seems.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I'm bummed out to hear that the kids aren't able to come in physically, but it sounds to me like maybe Flipaclip will be something that they can use and share their projects with.
Oh, they're able. We're open with limited capacity. They're just
gotcha.
They're in our particular community here. There's zero interest in technology programming. So like, I don't know what it is. They're all zoomed out or but the gym and the weight room is pretty much going on a regular basis here in the community center. So I have to stick to the virtual stuff right now, and that is what it is.
Yeah, and it's good that the kids are having a place where they can, be active and everything, because I know that's a whole challenge for a lot of people right now is finding a place for that. Awesome. Well, anybody else have any stories to share about what their members are doing drawing wise or animation wise or anything like that?
We are actually starting to create a anime comic.
Nice.
So this right here is really big for us. One of my students is actually close by watching as we were talking about it, and she's playing with Flipaclip as we speak. Nice. We're very, very interested there. I have a lot of kids that is in the anime heavy. So we decided to create a FBR comic, and we've already started taking each participant's powers and what their name should be, and we're going to write the storyline and put everything together.
That's so awesome, man. That sounds like not only a super creative project, but a super collaborative effort, and I love that kind of stuff. That's one beautiful thing about drawing and animation is like, it's very collaborative. And once you get a group of kids like that bouncing ideas off one another, you're going to see some really awesome results. So I'd love to check that out. We'll have to trade emails or something like that. And I'd love to check that out when it's underway. That sounds really cool.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Does anybody else have any thing they want to share about how their Clubhouse kids are engaging with drawing or animation or anything like that?
Yeah, hey, Galen, Lalo from San Antonio, man.
Hey, good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too, brother. Yeah, we try to integrate art and technology with here at the center as well. So kids are pretty into painting. We did your workshop. I don't know if you can see our name behind you, where it was that bomb lettering
Oh, nice.
virtually. We did it here in the center, and then uh, also we animate our own Magic the Gathering cards.
Wow.
So it's kind of we have a template that we use, and then they can change it whether we want to be a planeswalker or a creature or a spell, and then they can animate that, and we can print them out and stuff like that. So
That's so
that's
awesome.
probably
My son would love that. He's obsessed with Magic the Gathering.
cool.
That's
I can
really
send you
cool.
the template. It's pretty easy template to fill out. You can fill it out, like I said, whatever your power is going to be, or we do Magic Mondays here, so it's pretty big um, draft or whatever, but we use that to engage them with their animation and graphic designs. Right now, we're trying to do like short animations with them. One of the kids follows a YouTuber that they do animations within their YouTube channel, and he was trying to find a way to do it. We were using still frames, like making a GIF
Yeah.
in Photoshop, but this seems like it'll be a lot user friendly for the kids who don't really have that grasp that concept yet.
That's awesome. Yeah, Photoshop's actually pretty powerful for that, and that's how I got a lot of my animations going in the Clubhouse initially, was doing animation frames in Photoshop. And it's good for that, you know, and like this is a good mobile app, but you know, if folks today are enjoying this, but they want to try something on the computer too, Photoshop's actually pretty good for that, you know, and there's a lot of ways to do it. Awesome, thank you. Anybody else, or are you guys wanting to hear about some other stuff going on in the cartoon world these days? All right, cool. I guess I'll move on, but I'd love to share some stories with you guys to learn more about that. So now you guys get to hear me kind of go crazy a little bit about just how much exciting stuff is happening. We're going to take a quick look at the animation boom. So we're kind of in the middle of a really big animation thing where a lot of stuff is trending and becoming more popular. And so, you know, with the pandemic, a lot of folks were going to streaming services. And, you know, my kids were super into, you know, watching cartoons on Netflix and Hulu and stuff like that. It seems like there's more demand right now with these streaming services for a variety of different animation styles and types of programming. And so, you know, we hear about this kind of stuff in the Clubhouse all the time. Kids are talking about like their favorite episode of Teen Titans Go, or they're talking about Bob's Burgers, or they're talking about, you know, Cuphead, or, you know, all these different things. So I just wanted to like throw some light on some of these, because it's just become a huge industry, you know, and interestingly enough, with all these streaming services showing this stuff, most of the stuff that the kids are into right now, it's like 2D animation. So even though we're in the era of CG and Pixar and everything like that, kids are super into anime. They're super into like, you know, Gravity Falls and, you know, Teen Titans Go and all this kind of stuff. So I was just like amazed to find all these examples, you know, pulling from what the kids were into, involving all these kinds of things. So 2D animation is going through a huge trending boom right now. And this is one of the reasons why is all the kids are on these streaming services. Another reason why is a lot of them, you know, like you mentioned, are into YouTubers. And some of the most popular YouTubers right now are actually animators. So, you know, one of the guys who's credited with this genre is Swoozy, and he was one of the first guys to use YouTube to kind of do the storytime animation. And he kind of like created this whole genre where other people started getting on there and doing their own storytime animation. So you have a huge variety of styles, like different people working in different styles. Tremendous diversity of stories, like all kinds of stories are being told on this platform. And it's just a very exciting time because our Clubhouse kids look up to these animators and they really value them telling stories. Cyphered In, Jaden Animations, Senior Pello, The Odd Ones Out, Swoozy, a lot of these YouTubers with the storytime animations are really telling personal stories. So it's not like fiction, it's like slice of life, true stories, and that's tremendously popular. So it's a great opportunity to foster creativity with your Clubhouse kids and get them to share their stories and kind of feature, you know, these people. So do you guys talk a little bit about, do your members talk about their favorite animations or YouTubers or anything like that? Have you guys heard anything about that yet from your members? Right on. I'll come back around if you guys think of anything. So I bet you guys are feeling ready to get your hands, going and making your own animations. Before we do that, I just want to give you a simple breakdown of like 2 different approaches to making animation. And these are very common, industry approaches, but it's kind of cool to know this, and it'll actually help your Clubhouse members when they're making their stuff. So there's straight ahead animation and there's pose to pose animation. The main difference here is straight ahead animation is drawn in sequence. So you draw frame 1, and then you draw frame 2, and you draw frame 3, and you draw frame 4, all in sequence. And you kind of have to be very careful to make slight changes between those frames. It's a good idea with straight ahead animation to keep your drawings close together, like even make the figures overlapping. And most kids who first start with animation, this is their approach. And it's actually a really good approach to creating cartoons. We're going to do our own straight ahead animation today just to learn the app, and we're going to be using a squiggle, a simple line on the tablet. But I also wanted to share with you guys what's mainly used in the animation industry, which is pose to pose animation. What that means is they might draw frame 1, and then they might draw frame 5 or 6, and then they'll draw frame 12. And the reason they're doing it that way is they're kind of drawing the key poses. For instance, like if I was gonna, throw a ball, a key pose would be me winding up, about to throw the ball. And the next key pose would be me following through, like of actually throwing the ball. And I would draw those drawings first, and then I would actually create the in-betweens. And what this does is this allows the animator to not have to worry about trying to create the animation. They can just worry about creating the story. And another great aspect of this is it opens it up for more collaboration. You guys saw the example where I had kids drawing keyframes and then creating in-betweens together. In the animation industry, a key animator will create the key poses, and then it's the job of the in-betweeners to create the in-between frames. So don't worry if that's a lot of information right now, but I just wanted you guys to know that there's a couple ways to approach this. And I want to show you guys another example. So this is an example of a Clubhouse kid doing straight ahead animation. And they just started by squiggles on there. And it was kind of cool because straight ahead animation allows for like improvisation. They're really just drawing a frame and then drawing another frame and trying to think of what it could be with very little thought about the plan. But you get this great spontaneous look to it, So straight ahead animation is a great way to get your kids engaged with the app. They can learn the app and everything like that. So I'll show you guys. So we're going to get into like the interface, and I kind of touched on that a little bit, but I'm going to switch cameras so you guys can see what this program looks like in action. And if you guys have your device with you, feel free to follow along because, this is a very easy process. And once you kind of do your own little squiggle animation, you're going to know everything you need to do to get kids started. And then after that, we can get into some more complex animation as well. So I'm going to go back to my webcam here and switch cameras so you guys can see what I'm doing here. Okay, does everybody see on my screen this little tablet right here? I know it's probably small in your thing. If there's a way to make that screen bigger for yourself, I would recommend it. Maybe pin video. Oh, there we go. Thanks, Jake. All right, so here we are. This is basically what the interface looks like when you first open it up. You can see it's got a project gallery and everything like that. But what we're going to do for this little warm-up of straight ahead animation is we're going to hit the plus sign and make a new animation. I'm using a tablet today, but you can use your finger if you want. For the sake of this demo, I'm just going to call this one squiggle and hit done. There's a few options here. You can change the background. It has some prefab backgrounds here. You can paint bucket your background. You can import a photo from your photo library, or you can even take a picture with your device. Like some kids like to take a picture themselves and then animate it. I'm just going to go ahead and give it a prefab background for the sake of this demo. And there's some options here, canvas size. The free version that you guys probably have on your phone, I think the max might be 720p. That's still pretty good. Like it looks nice when you export it, but the pay versions, you can go all the way up to, 2550 by 1440. But I think for today's demo, maybe I actually won't do that. I'll stick with the 720. So that's your background frames per second. You can adjust that. If it's a beginner student, sometimes 8 is kind of nice. For today's demo, I'm going to do 12. Always share with the kids that most of the stuff they watch on TV is 12 frames a second, and the feature films that they enjoy are 24 frames a second. But 12 is actually a really good standard for them to work in. Okay, let me just get this thing focused up. It's got an autofocus, so it kind of takes a second. All right, so we'll go to create project. All right, so for the squiggle animation, I'll just go over a couple of things. We have a timeline down here. So this is where your frames will stack up. We have our toolbar right here, where all of your pens, pencils, markers, and things. You have an eraser tool, a selection tool, paint bucket. It's pretty basic stuff, but that's kind of the beauty of Flipaclip too, is that it frees you up to just do creative stuff. So I'll show you guys just real simple how to create an animation. One thing that's really helpful is to have the onion skin tool turned on. And the onion skin tool allows you to see what your previous frame looked like. So if yours is not turned on, I would just go to these 3 dots up here and make sure that this is turned on. The bubble should be red for that. So that's the onion skin tool. And that's super helpful because it gives you a guide of where your last frame was. So I'm going to go ahead and create a squiggle, something real basic. And then I'll create a new frame. You can see the ghost image is showing where my previous frame was. So this time I'm going to do a new squiggle. When you're doing straight ahead animation with your members, I always recommend them to make small movements. So their next frame should just be a little bit different than their last frame. And always emphasize that it's a good idea to try to overlap. So if you got a little bit of overlap, then your animation will look smooth. And so we'll just create a whole bunch of frames here so you can kind of see how easy it is to get started on something like this. I just do a squiggle, I push the plus sign. Now I'm starting to do something else. Maybe I'll turn this squiggle into something. I'll have it start forming into a circle. So I'm just hitting that plus sign every time I do a change. Let's go ahead and play it back. So the play feature is over here in the bottom right. We can just play it back. So right off the bat, you can get some pretty cool little simple animations going. And that's about as much as I show to my Clubhouse kids when they're first, using this program. Oh, nice. There's a lot of stuff in the chat. My youth really love, I'll go over some of these cool things in the chat while we kind of look at this squiggle animation. My youth love anime and have tried to make their own animations from scratch. This will excite them. That's awesome. One of my students is really wanting to learn animation. We tried Adobe Animate. I can understand the difficulty there. Yeah, it's a good program, Adobe Animate, but maybe it's a challenge. It's not very accessible when you first open it up. Kamal is doing some stuff there with animals. That's really cool. And animations. Okay, I see the typo. Members told about this app because they're using the project and the workshop. Okay, very cool. Awesome, you guys. I'm glad you guys are sharing some of your thoughts in the chat here. So I'm going to go back to the slides and I'm going to show you. I hope you followed along, but if not, no big deal. But I want to show you guys a couple of things about going beyond going beyond the straight ahead animation to more of the what you call pose to pose animation. Oh, and you know what? Another thing about navigating is you can zoom in and out. I'll show you guys that stuff later, and that's actually really helpful. So these were kind of the steps we went through. We created a new file. I'll just play this one. And so right off the bat, we were able to create some very, kind of cool little simple animations. Congratulations, you've made a squiggle Flipaclip. Good job. If you guys followed along. And are there any questions about that process? I know it's kind of simple, but maybe you might have some questions about straight ahead animation.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Hi. So I was following along just now on my phone.
Yeah.
And I was wondering how do you like duplicate a slide and then put it at the end of the sequence?
That's a really good question. I'll show you guys one more thing about the program here. That's really cool. Yeah, that's a super good question because that comes up a lot too. Like kids will want to be able to change one thing about the character, but maybe they don't want to change everything about the character, right? So check this out. So to answer your question there, you can duplicate stuff too. So I could either select part of my drawing by using this tool and I can copy it, or I can copy an entire frame. Like if I want to make this frame happen again, and that is actually really useful too. Like if you want to slow down the animation, say the kid makes their cartoon and they're like, it goes by way too fast. I want to slow it down. You can click and hold and you can copy a frame. So there's different options here. You can copy it like that, and then you can copy paste so it's the same one in the next one. Or you can even paste it in the frame previous, which comes in handy, especially what we're going to get into next with in-betweening. Sometimes you want to copy a frame and put it before the one that you drew or something like that. But yeah, clicking and holding opens up all these cool options. It also lets you just insert a new frame that doesn't have anything in it, like a blank one. Or if you don't like a frame, you can click and hold it, trash it with the trash can. Click and hold and trash. So yeah, there's additional options by clicking and holding here. But yeah, this is the one you're looking for if you wanted to copy a frame.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's go back to some slides. Is there any other questions about straight ahead animation, about that technique and kind of what goes into that? All right, cool. I'm going to share screen again, and then we'll get into some more in-depth stuff here. Okay, so this next exercise is going to get more in depth, and this is where the pose-to-pose animation comes in. So this is just a real simple bouncing ball thing. I think it's about 12 frames, and you can kind of count 1 second of animation goes past, like 1 Mississippi, 1 Mississippi. So real short, but there's a lot of cool principles that go into this type of animation, and I'm going to get into that. If you're an animation student, the first thing they have you do in year 1 is they ask you to do a bouncing ball animation. And part of the reason of doing that is you learn a lot of principles while doing this project. One of those principles is called squash and stretch. It's basically how you can make an object appear to have a different type of mass or speed or momentum or weight. So this is a really good project to do with your kids because they'll get so excited to see like that their bouncing ball might look more like a bowling ball or it might look more like a rubber ball. It really depends on how much of this squash and stretch is used. It's also used in characters all the time, like characters that might be bouncing across the screen. They'll have a certain amount of squash and stretch to give them that liveliness. So that's one of the things we're going to learn. Another thing we're going to learn is we're going to actually plan our animation so that some of the frames are close together, which is going to make it slow, and some of the frames are going to be spaced out, which is going to make it go fast. And animators call this slow in, slow out. You see it in Disney animations all the time. They're credited with creating these principles as Disney's 12 principles of animation. So slow in, slow out can really make your stuff look more realistic, like it has momentum and it's traveling a greater distance, you know, that kind of thing. There's an example here of a guy in a Segway. The first example is where motion and time are just, you know, consistent and it looks a little robotic. Once they tweak it and have the frames close together at the beginning, close together at the end, it looks more believable. So that's slow in, slow out. We're also gonna be doing something called arcs, and animators use these to sort of plan out their animation. And also just movement in general looks more natural if it's on an arc. One example is like this hand movement, right? Not very often do you see somebody waving their hand like this, but an amateur animator might do that. People animate their hands naturally on an arc. So it's kind of an important principle for animation. If your character's turning their head, if your character's moving their arms, there's always going to be these arcs. And so that's another thing we're going to apply. And I just wanted to show a couple of these planning sheets because they look crazy, right? These look like some sort of like physics class experiment where they're doing all these different markings to try to plan something out. But really what this is an animator's note to self of how they want their animation to have, you know, a smooth arc and how they want to have it, their frames either go close together or far apart. So it looks crazy, but I'll show you guys how this is actually applied. So any questions before we get started on level 2 of this pose to pose animation? Okay, we don't have a ton of time, so I'm going to kind of move quickly through it so you guys can see how to do it. Setting up your file is going to be a little different. I'll show that. Yeah, so we'll get into it. I'm actually going to switch from my slides back to the camera so you guys can see how this is done. Hopefully we'll have enough time to do the full thing. All right, so let's switch back to our camera here. Okay, so I'm going to show you guys here when you're doing pose to pose animation. Let's get a new one going here. And another cool feature here, guys, Flipaclip does an auto save, so you don't have to save. You can just exit out your program. It's kind of frozen up here, so I'm just gonna close it and reopen it. You get to see this cool intro animation while we're waiting. This has some cool animated techniques too with the motion blur. Okay, so I'm gonna, probably do similar background. This time maybe you'll do a little higher resolution, because I'm putting some more work into this. Maybe it'll be something good for YouTube. 12 frames a second, I'm gonna stick with that. And we'll just call this bouncing ball. Okay, so on this new one, I'm actually going to show you guys a little bit about the layers because I want to show you how animators plan out their animation before they get going. So I'm going to click the layer thing down here in the lower right-hand corner, and I'm going to create 2 more layers. One I'm going to call lines, and this is going to be the final animation that people see on screen. So I'm going to call that one lines. It's going to be like the clean line work. Layer 2, I'm actually going to make that my color layer. Whoops. So I'm just going to call that one color. Let's see, hopefully you guys can see that okay. And the reason why animators do their color layer below the lines is even if you color outside of the lines a little bit, your artwork, your line work will stay intact. This one's going to be my sketch. And this is the most important part of this process I want to share with you guys. Animators do a lot of sketching and planning before they create their animation. And at the end of this, I'm going to trash this layer. This layer you're not going to see on the final animation. It's just for us to be able to plan out our sequence. So make sure you're on your sketch layer. It should be highlighted in red. And this is where we're getting into this, principle of animation, which is slow in, slow out. So first, we're going to create the arc. I'm imagining a bouncing ball going across the screen in 12 frames. So it's kind of like one Mississippi, I'm just imagining one Mississippi. The ball travels across the screen. The next thing I'm actually going to do is think about as this ball is traveling across the screen, it might sort of start out slow because it's kind of fighting against gravity. But once it gets over here, it might start moving more quickly. And then it's going to have a bounce here, and then it's going to bounce up. So I'm going to plan out that slow in, slow out by just making little marks, like frame 1 and frame 2, and even frame 3. Those might be pretty close together. But as we get over here to frame 4 and frame 5 and frame, maybe even frame 6 is all the way here at the bottom because it's the halfway point of 12 frames. We see these larger gaps, right? So basically the ball starts out slow and then gains momentum and goes faster. And it might still be going pretty fast as it's bouncing up. So maybe frame 6 is over, or frame 7 is over here. Frame 8, and then maybe we'll start getting it closer together as it's fighting gravity. It's getting slower, 9, 10, 11, and 12. So this looks kind of crazy, but this is actually just a little plan on how we can create our animation. And like I said before, this layer, we're going to trash it later, but for now, we're just going to duplicate it and we're going to paste it 12 times so that we have 1 second of animation. So I got my timeline here, and just going to create enough of these so that we can cover 1 second of animation. Okay, so I got 12 frames of all the same thing, but really that's my plan of how I'm going to animate this bouncing ball. Let me do a quick check on the time. So it's about 1:20 right now. So now I'm actually ready to create my animation. And one thing I got to be super careful of is that I'm not working on my sketch layer. Now I'm working on my lines. I'm going to choose my pen. Maybe I'll choose a color. This ball could be blue. Maybe I'll make my ball a little bit larger line work. So I turn that up. And so now I can go back to my layer 1, and I'm working on frame 1 on my timeline, on my line layer, and I'll create a ball, something like that. And we'll go to frame 2. And actually, since this is going to be pose-to-pose animation, let's focus on the big jumps here. The ball is over here. I think the next big jump is when it's landing on the ground. Animators use something called squash and stretch. We looked at that a second ago. I'm actually going to make the ball really flat here because it's traveled all this way, and the impact is sort of flattened out. And then the next big jump is going to be on frame 12, and it's all the way over here. So my animation is not complete, but you guys can see the keyframes. If we were drawing a character, we might do frame 1, left foot. Frame 6 would be like standing, and then frame 12 would be right foot. So you do the big changes in between those frames. But now, if we want to see what's a good between frame 1 and frame 6, we have to change one setting. And I want you guys to, if you're following along, go to your onion skin tool, and this time we're going to go to edit. And then here it says frames before. This is how many frames of animation before your current frame you can see. I'm going to turn that all the way up so I can see like 5 frames behind. And I'm also going to turn up frames after all the way up. So you have your before frames and your after frames. It can be a little confusing, but this feature right here, you can actually make it color. So anything that's in red is in the past. Anything in green is in the future. And the one you're working on is just going to be the normal color. So that's really helpful for doing keyframe animation. So now that we have our onion skin tool, we can see when we go to like in between 6 and 7, we can see where future frame is in green, and we can see where our past frame is. And I'll go ahead and start creating frames 5 and 6. Now this is going to look wild, but between, you know, frames 6 and 4, that's a big jump. I'm going to actually stretch out the bouncy ball for this. And I'm going for really exaggerated movement. You guys don't have to do it like that. Frame 2. Oh yeah, actually let me make frame 3 more over here. And I'll erase that one. That's going to be more like for frame 5. So then frame 4 is going to be right here. And see how I'm doing all this exaggeration? You can do that. Or like we saw in the previous example, Fernando, he was like doing stuff like this where he would draw a normal thing, but then he would draw motion lines behind it. And that actually looks really cool when you animate it too. So that's frame 5, stretching it out. Frame 6 is the impact. Frame 7 is springing back into shape. Oh, and I think we'll do frame 11 here and frame 12 there. So now if we play this back, we have this really exaggerated bouncing ball thing. But what's cool is we learned a couple principles here. We learned squash and stretch. We learned how to slow in, slow out. And we also learned how to use arcs. So those are some good like principles for your kids to practice. Since I don't want my planning layer anymore, I'm going to show you guys how to trash it. So my sketch layer, I'll click on it, hold it. And what you're going to do is slide to the right, and you'll have some options here. I'm going to trash my sketch layer. And now I can just watch my animation, you know, like that. And if you guys are following along, want to color yours in, just make sure you're on your color layer. And the beauty of this is, since it's on a separate layer, it's not going to affect our line work. So I can color, and it doesn't have to be necessarily perfectly in the lines. You can see that it's actually maintaining my original drawing without anything like that. So that's kind of the basics of it. Oh, I have two drawings in one frame. Haha, that's kind of funny. I always remind the kids though, like, even if you have a mistake like this, it's not a huge deal if it's going by 1/12 of a second, right? Because it's, when it's played back, it goes by so fast, you may not even notice that there's two drawings in one frame there. So that's kind of fun. I want to show you guys too, like some of the sharing features on here as well, because one thing that really excites the Clubhouse kids is being able to share their stuff. So I'll show those features, but before I share how to export, we got about like 10 or 15 minutes left. Did you guys have any questions about this part of the process, about this pose to pose animation? I know it's a little more advanced than the straight ahead animation, but the reward is kids can do some more detailed type of stuff like what they see on TV. But do you guys have any questions about pose to pose animation and that whole process?
I do. Can you hide a layer before deleting that whole lines layer? Can you sort of hide it just to see what your animation looks like without the sketches and all that stuff?
Oh yeah, that's a really good question. Here, I'll show you. So, so right now it says 100%. And if I want to hide that, I can just click on it and it gives me like a crossed out eyeball icon. And that is super helpful because there are times when you just want to focus on one part of your animation, and being able to do it that way is cool. And then another cool thing, I didn't really show this before, but just like how we trashed our frames, you can also lock a layer. So if you have a layer like at the end of my drawing my lines, I want to make sure that those don't get messed up. I can actually slide over and hit the little padlock and lock it up. So yeah, it has a couple of features there, sort of hidden behind the description if you just click and slide. Awesome. Any other questions about that part of the process or these principles of animation or anything? Another cool thing, guys, with those layers is I've had kids bring in like really detailed artwork. Like, you know, they might bring in Goku from Dragon Ball Z and they'll bring that into one layer, and then they'll just animate the mouth or the eyes on a separate layer. So that's kind of fun too. It's like they can learn some of these techniques that are used in the anime industry with that highly detailed artwork. You can still do some pretty cool animations if you just really maximize how you use your layers. Do you guys have any more questions before we show exporting?
Hey, here, quick one, Galen,
Yeah.
about the sketch layer.
Yeah.
You man, sorry if I missed it when you said it, but you made that as your back layer to show your kind of path of your motion. Can you add multiple sketch layers for just to use for reference? If you know, if other.
Yeah, and so to answer your question, you can, and that's a really great way to do your project. Is like the one I showed earlier with Aubrey's little flame hair character. She actually didn't want me to share that. She kind of got mad at me when I put it in my slideshow because she was like, "That's just my sketch layer, mister. Like, I want to be able to do my final artwork on there." You can actually do unlimited layers in the pay version. So the pay version has unlimited layers. The free version, the maximum layers you can have is 3. But yeah, a lot of artists work that way. Like you might actually work out your animation as a stick figure and then do a new layer and start adding the musculature, then do a new layer and add the animation of the clothing. And a lot of artists work that way, and it's actually a really good way to work if you're trying to do more complex animations for sure. Are there any other questions in the room before we get on to exporting? Okay, cool. I'll show you guys how to do some exporting. So like I said before, one really cool feature about Flipaclip is that you can directly upload to different social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, things like that. So the way you do this is you just go to Make Movie, and it brings up some options here. You can change the format from a GIF to a PNG or MP4. Most of the kids use MP4 because they want to upload it to YouTube, but sometimes a GIF is cool because you could just attach it to like an email or something like that. The PNG is nice if you didn't use any backgrounds, because then you can have an animation that you could superimpose on something else and it'll just be the character, and you can like change the background with a PNG. So sometimes that's used, but most of the time they use MP4. If you have the free version, it'll automatically add a watermark, a little Flipaclip logo in the lower right corner, but it doesn't get in the way of the animation too much. But the pay version allows you to not have the watermark. The output size, like you can do pretty high resolution. You can do, you know, the 2560 by 1440, which is kind of nice. And then you go to Make Movie. When you're making your movie, it'll actually give you these options too, immediately uploading to YouTube. And for that, you just have to be able to sign into your Google account, and you can automatically do that. Let me get rid of that. Same with TikTok. Like if you have TikTok on your phone, you can upload it directly into TikTok. So a lot of kids do that. And I always do this one where I just save to my photos. That way I can upload it to my own device or my own social media later on. But those are some pretty cool features for exporting. In closing, I wanted to show you guys just a couple other fun things that you can do as well. So let me go back to share screen. So another cool thing is, this is one that my son did. He's only 8 years old too. So the fact that he was able to do this stuff just blew me away, because I wasn't even around when he made these animations. but you can actually import your own live action footage. So he brought himself in there. He did the little Dragon Ball Z, Kamehameha wave there. And then he drew it, frame by frame, his own little fireball on there. So that's super fun too, is like just do an action with your Clubhouse members. And then you can actually, oh shoot, I'm on the wrong camera. I'm sorry guys, let me switch back. You guys didn't see that. Let me go back to, are you guys seeing this animation right here?
Yeah, we saw.
Okay, sorry. I got a little mixed up between my webcams and my PowerPoints here. But yeah, that's another cool feature. Also check this out. This is what he did with his Lego characters. He's adding special effects like laser beams and stuff like that. So yeah, that's another really fun thing you can do with it. And I encourage you guys too, like if you get into this with your Clubhouse members, check out the Flipaclip website, and especially the Flipaclip YouTube channel. They post stuff regularly. They post stuff that's made by young creators all the time. And they put together this cool little reel that's just like showing a bunch of different styles and a bunch of different age groups and stuff like that. So definitely I would like, if you guys get into this, if it seems like it's a fun thing in your Clubhouse, just check out that Flipaclip YouTube channel and you'll find a lot of really great content. They even do like creator profiles where they will follow a creator and they'll show their process and talk about their journey and everything like that. So it's pretty awesome. So that's about all I have to share for you guys today. It looks like we got a couple of minutes left. Does anybody have any last questions or comments or anything before we wrap up today?
Oh, I have one more question.
Mm-hmm.
So is this a kind of app that you can just pay one time, or is it like a subscription if you want to get the full version?
You just pay one time. And that's another thing that I think is really making this program accessible to a lot of users. If I think it's just $10 and then you have it forever. I've never gotten another statement or anything that I had to pay again. And another kid told me they actually got it on their phone for $7. So that's even cooler. I wonder if it's cheaper on Android devices or something like that. But yeah, that's another cool thing. One-time fee and you've got it. And the other interesting thing is I only paid for it once, but I put it on like 3 different tablets already. So I don't know if I haven't really tried to test how many licenses you get for that $10, but I managed to put it on 3 different devices already, and I haven't had any problems with that yet. So I'd love to hear back if you guys end up purchasing it and if you're able to put it on a lot of devices and see how that works out for you. You guys got any other questions?
Hey, Galen, someone asked if your slides will be available after the session.
I could do that. So I put it together on Google Slides. So let's see. I wonder if I can actually post a link in the chat. Maybe let me try it out. Oh yeah, here we go. Copy link. Yeah, I'll share this with you guys so so you guys can use the slides to generate some interest in your own Clubhouse. Yeah, where's the chat thing? Oh, sorry.
Good job, Galen.
Thank you. I hope you guys had fun. I know I kind of go crazy when it comes to animation because it's one of my favorite things in the world. But hopefully, that those 2 techniques will be useful for you guys. And I hope everybody had fun like doing some cartoons on their own devices today.
Thank you, Galen. That was great.
Thank you too. Awesome. Any other questions or anything? Awesome. Well, you guys enjoy the rest of your conferences and your sessions and everything. And I'm so glad I got to hang out with you guys and make some cartoons. That was really fun for me anyhow.
Thanks so much. This is awesome.
All right, you guys have a good one.
Bye, Galen.
Thanks all. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you so